Welcome, college basketball fans, to the Full Court Press Podcast with LT and Sammy D. This is the podcast that brings you legendary stories from college basketball's golden era and dives in deep with a current analysis of today's game. Get ready for the most energetic and entertaining college basketball podcast around. Let's get it.
Tiger Woods wears red on Sunday. LT wears pink on the Full Court Press Podcast, a college basketball experience. Luke Taylor here. I got my guy Sammy D. Don't forget, if you love us, you like us, we're palatable, you want us to grow, you want us to have some fun, subscribe, rate, and review where you can. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, like, and comment. And if you do leave us a review, which we'd appreciate on Apple Podcasts, 5 stars. We love 5 stars, just like you do, like McDonald's All-Americans and 5 stars. Full Court Press likes them. So, Sam, we got a great one.
Let's get it, LT.
It took some time, but it's always great to talk to the new head coach of your alma mater, both of our alma maters.
I love it, man. I'm so excited. We're gonna get into it. I knew that there was a reason that you got a haircut.
I got a fade.
You did. You got a nice fade, man.
First one, yeah.
You're looking sharp. And
Yeah.
I also think it's serendipitous that this past week we hit a really important milestone on the podcast. We entered the top 10 basketball podcasts on Apple.
Consistently,
and, so thank you for all the work you're doing to get these stellar names, coaches, players, athletic directors, conference commissioners, especially in our first year, and
not even first year.
We're not even done with the first year yet. And we cracked the top 10 college basketball podcasts in the world. And I think it's serendipitous that our first episode after we crack that top 10 is the head coach from an alma mater, DePaul University.
No, but we got to remember, we had the Legends podcast that hit on Tuesday. Today's Thursday.
Oh my God.
We had Jeff McInnes, who, man, he was awesome. He wants to come back. We're going to have him back.
He was so fun. If you haven't listened to that Jeff McInnes episode, do it, because especially if you're like a 1990s college basketball fan, he was in the heart and soul of that University of North Carolina team. He was the point guard in the Jerry Stackhouse, Rasheed Wallace, Dean Smith squad.
Serge Wicker.
Serge Wicker. Yeah. No, we've been on fire lately. The Coach Chris Mack episode was right before that. That was an incredible episode. I'm so excited for our guest today, though.
Yeah, another Chris. We got Coach Chris Holtman, the new head coach of DePaul University, the Blue Demons, and it's Chris Holtman 1.0.
Yeah, it's when you look at his body of work and you look at the status of where DePaul basketball was, 4 or 5 months ago, what a great fit he is. When you look at his complete body of work, the players he's coached who have made it successfully through the college circuit into the NBA, playing pros right now. And then,
I didn't realize that. I'm like, holy
oh my
crap.
gosh. The guys he's coached, his player development is off the charts. And I think that is going to be such a key for dominating the transfer portal the next couple of years. Especially some of these guys who may have a really good season at a mid-major program, they're going to be looking at a power conference to join. Right.
Yep.
And I do think that the appeal of Chicago and then the appeal of working with somebody like Coach Holtman, as well as the assistant coaches that he's hired so quickly, it's going to be a really appealing place for top level transfers to play the next several years.
Yeah. And I think if you look at DePaul graduates like ourselves, former student athletes you played, I coached, fans, people that grew up with it, we're due. We're due for this excitement level and just to be back to where we used to be. When we were at DePaul, it was great because we were competitive, went to the NCAA tournament. It was Dave Lato 1.0. And then, you look at who they brought in. Dwayne Peavy's doing a great job. We got to meet him and Taylor Stapleton that are just I love their energy. I love their
the vision.
genuine
The vision is what
vision.
gets me, but not just talking about a vision, going out there and executing it. Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Like that's what
yeah.
I see with Dwayne, is that like he has this vision, this legacy that he wants to create for himself during his time at DePaul, and he's going out there, putting the pieces in place and getting it done. Right.
Yeah.
And you know, Coach Holtman could have easily taken a year or 2 or 3 years off of coaching.
Yeah, because he got monopoly money, man.
It's
He got
crazy.
that
That's
monopoly
like,
money.
and you heard him say, like, it was the initial conversations with Dwayne and President Rob at DePaul that said, yeah, this is a good fit for me just to move directly into this position in Chicago, keep my family in the Midwest. And it's a program, like you said, it's like we're yearning as alumni for something to happen at DePaul and on the basketball court more than ever. Right.
Yeah.
And it's the opportunity at DePaul in Chicago, being a basketball centric school, like it's off the charts, the opportunity, you know. And you know, if you can start building year by year, there's going to be some special things happening. And I'm buying into the Chris Holtman era of DePaul. And I'm really excited for the season to open, and the team he put together. I mentioned it on this upcoming episode. It's like, you know, you could look at stats and everything, but it's like when you actually start looking at the clips from these guys this past season, they're the guys who are diving on the court. They're the guys who are winning 50-50 balls off the boards. Like they're playing hard, right? And that is such a special skill set, especially in the Big East.
Yeah. Yeah. What I really liked, and it was the first time ever, and I just kind of want to recognize this. I think we're 60 episodes in, that I got 3 great questions and you only got 1.
You did get 3.
I know.
You did get 3. I'm glad you're keeping track of that. Yeah.
Well, you know what? It's all about winning in life. But so I had to ask the question because I think, and I was honest. I mean, I wasn't really warm and fuzzy at first, but when
it's
you start,
it's the elephant in the room that you want to,
well,
you want to hear.
Yeah. And I think I looked at him first the last year and a half at Ohio State. But if you look at his body of work,
yeah.
I mean, even though he didn't, you know, and we got the explanation of why they struggled a bit. When you're young, like you brought up John Calipari. It's the same thing. You can't win with youth anymore. You need to get old and stay old. It sounds like that seems like a lot of coaches we've had, whether it's, you know, Coach Faulkner at Youngstown State, you know, talking about staying old, a lot of these guys. But I will tell you, if you look at his body of work, the guy's a winner. And I think it was I know it was the right hire. I think Dwayne Peavy as the athletic director is the right hire as the AD. He brought in a great staff, whether it's Courtney Day, Taylor Stapleton, big up Courtney Day for making this happen. But I'm really excited, and I'm trying to figure out how to tell my wife I'm going to be missing a lot of family activities. So I'm going to be going to Chicago and going to the Wintrust Arena because Coach Holtman invited us.
He did. Yeah, no, we've got an open invitation, but it's like they're going to put a team on the court that's going to play hard, and it's going to be coached very well, you know.
Yeah.
And when we talk about keeping a team old and mature and experienced, the coaching staff, you know, he said it wasn't intentional, but it's like every coach has some kind of like head coaching or a really good pedigree, right?
Yep.
And
he's got a history and cohesion with these guys like Jack Owens. You know, Laval Jordan. I guess Laval didn't want to be on Big East TV anymore. Paris Parnham, and then Brian Mullins is the one I'm kind of really intrigued with just because of his connections to the Chicagoland area and you know, AAU basketball and his family and being the head coach at SIU. But you know, I think we're gonna have a gritty team. I think it's gonna speak for what DePaul is about, like that Blue Demon grit. I think DePaul has always been kind of a blue collar team, and I think we're going to see this, you know, this year on the floor. But what I thought was interesting, and I forgot to bring this up. So he was born and raised in Lexington, Kentucky, and I'm curious if Dwayne and him knew each other much because of that connection with Dwayne coming from the University of Kentucky and Holtman being a fan and someone born from there.
Yeah, well, let's get into it, LT.
Yeah, let's do it. So don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review, and let's get into the newest and latest episode of the Full Court Press Podcast, a college basketball experience with new DePaul head men's basketball coach, Chris Holtman.
Dream big, baby.
Sam, this is a great day for us. It's only taken, all the excuses of he moved, he's got his family, all this stuff. We finally have, we have to be very careful about this podcast because we don't want to show our love too much for this school. Sam, who we got? I'm going to let you introduce
it's a good day because we both invested a lot of this school. I think we both.
Yeah, but you don't. Time out. You don't get the first question. I get the first question. You can
have all the questions you want, man. I am so excited for DePaul basketball right now. And I think it's we're in a lot of like alumni threads and stuff like that, and it's like the excitement for Blue Demon basketball is I don't think it's been higher the past couple decades, and so I'm super excited about this guest.
Yeah, and he's the second graduate. You did graduate from Taylor University, I hope.
I did.
Did Coach Gross actually graduate too?
With better grades, mind you. Yes.
Okay. So we have the second ever graduate of Taylor University, Coach Chris Holtman from DePaul University. Welcome to the Full Court Press Podcast.
Yeah, not many podcasts can say that. Certainly sporting podcasts can say that they've got multiple Taylor University graduates. But it's great to be with you guys. And yeah. I did move. Those were all legitimate reasons. They were not excuses.
Yeah, if it makes you feel any better, we've got you before Mark Aguirre, so that's cool.
Okay. All right. Good. Good luck with getting Mark. Good luck with
it. We're trying here, Coach. We've been trying for like a while, but we'll get there. Yeah. So the only question I want to ask you, well, I've got a couple questions, but the one question I want to ask you, okay, and this is good. You're either going to excite the DePaul fan base, but you're probably going to piss off some. White Sox or Cubs?
Oh. Yeah, you know what?
And you've been throwing out some first pitches too this season.
I have. I threw out the first pitch. So I'll be honest with you. When I was in Lexington, Kentucky growing up, I watched a ton of Cubs games on WGN. A ton. Now, I've got a couple guys on my staff like, Coach, we don't want to hear that. Harris, huge Sox fan. Sox fan. Loves the Sox. So, I also did throw out the first pitch. So I'm anxious I've been in both ballparks since I've been here. I love the experience in both ballparks, but I did grow up watching Cubs on WGN.
Yeah.
It's a good answer. It's, LT, I know we talked to Dwayne Peavy, the athletic director of DePaul University, when we were at the Final Four. It's the most excited I've seen him. And then, of course, we were like, hey, let's get Coach Holt on the podcast, and he's like, yeah, let's make it happen. But aside from the hiring, there wasn't a lot to talk about until you put that roster together, right? Until you put your coaching staff together.
Well, Sam, you didn't want to talk about NIL, the transfer portal, the NCAA tournament and the selection process. No?
Not yet, because I don't you didn't know what it was going to look like, right? Especially moving into a program like DePaul. So I want to kind of start with those initial conversations you had with Dwayne, what that looked like. We see a lot of successful coaches like yourself who had a really nice past decade or two in the coaching scene. When transitions happen, they might sit out a year or 2 years, right? What was so appealing to just say, no, I'm taking my family to Chicago. DePaul is so appealing to me. What was that process like?
Yeah, I've that's probably been the question that I've been asked the most, and I appreciate the question. I really do, because it's a real question. It was a real thought process that I went through in deciding. Very rarely in life, right, do you have the opportunity to not do anything if you so choose. And take a deep breath and, spend more time with your family or your friends or whatever. And that was put in front of me, and it was really put in front of me. It could have been more than a year. It could have been multiple years. I have coaching friends. Chris Mack was out of it for, I think, 2 or 3 years. I think 2 years. Was it
2 years. Yeah, we just had Coach Mack on, and he was like, "Yeah, they were some of the best 2 years of my life. You know, you got to spend it with his family, transitional years."
Yeah. Which I don't love hearing that because I bypassed that.
Right. That's why I asked your question. Like Coach Mack, we had on last week.
Sam,
and I was like, now we're transitioning.
Sam, we had Conzo Martin. He was telling us how those 2 years on a beach in Florida were divine.
Oh, man. Yeah, so like I really did. I really did think long and hard about that. And I think if you said to me, "Hey, what was the pull?" Really, two things. Three things probably. I liked my conversations with Dwayne and President Rob. I felt like there was alignment and a commitment to be relevant in college basketball, whatever that looks like. We know it's a heavy lift. There's no denying the fact that DePaul basketball in 19 years in the Big East has averaged 3.5 wins per year in league play. So there's no denying that. But the reality is I just felt like I really was pulled in by their vision and Dwayne's in particular, his passion, and President Rob as well. And I think their commitment. Number two, the challenge was really appealing. To be able to say, hey, let's do something that hasn't been done in a while, in a couple decades. You know, the challenge of that is real, but it was exciting. That challenge was exciting. And three, personal reasons was keeping our family in the Midwest. There were some other opportunities that were a little bit outside the Midwest. But keeping our family close to my wife's family. And then the bigger reason was my daughter's a freshman in high school, and I didn't want to move her twice, quite honestly. Yeah. So those were the factors for me choosing to continue to coach.
Yeah. So it was about a month. You got let go February 14th, and you accepted the job on March 14th. So it was about a month, probably the greatest month of your life. But so there's kind of two sides to the equation. Okay. There's the coach Holtman who did really well, turned around Gardner-Webb from 11-21, 12-20 to 21-13. Assistant at Butler, did really well at Butler. Started off really well at Ohio State. There's that thing. It's like, you know, he's built a program and stuff like that. Then there's the other, which I don't know if you ever heard this before, but you probably know this. You struggled the last 2 years at Ohio State. Okay. Yeah. You had the longest losing streak ever in the Big Ten. We don't need to harp on it. What can you tell the DePaul fan base about Coach Holtman? Because there were some people that, like, you know, at first, I'm gonna be honest with you. I got a fade yesterday, got a haircut for this. I was at least skeptical a little bit because of looking at the last 2 years of Ohio State. I'm just being honest. But if you look at your body of work, you've been there, done that. And you're taking a job that, like you said, 3.5 wins? You got to bring that up, 3.5 wins in the last, you know, we should have played like Georgetown 6 times a year. Would have been good the last couple of years. Yeah. But I guess what can DePaul fans, alumni expect from you and your staff? Because you got a really nice staff.
Yeah, no, I think, listen, I think the bottom line is you know, whenever you're in a situation, you take full account for all the good and the struggles as well. And we rebuilt the roster going into my 6th year, and we started 4 freshmen. And when you start 4 freshmen and when you're in the Big Ten, I don't care who you are, you are going to struggle. And we did it on purpose. Listen, I had just agreed to a 6-year extension at that point, and I was given a pretty strong, hey, let's really go young. And when that's said to you, you make that decision. And you know, we had a one and done that we didn't expect, but we ended up starting 4 sophomores the next year, and we were clearly better last year. We had beaten Alabama early. We were clearly headed in a better direction, and probably, you know, going to be an NIT team regardless, maybe a fringe NCAA tournament team, depending on how we finished. We finished really, really well. We got to the semifinals of the Big Ten tournament with that young group. So, you know, I think The experience of being in 8 straight NCAA tournament teams from Butler to Ohio State. First 5 teams at Ohio State were tournament teams. We were ranked as high as 2nd in the country. We were consistently a top 20, top 25 team. And our years at Butler were good. You know, a Sweet 16 and 3 tournament teams in 3 years. The Gardner-Webb experience was a good experience for me because I did learn rebuilding a program that needed to be really rebuilt in a different era for sure. But there's growing pains with that. Our first 2 years were hard there, and then we just hit it in year 3. We really hit it in year 3. You don't know when that breakthrough is going to happen. So I think all those experiences have really informed me as a coach and been really good experiences in general. And I think when you're trying to do things at a really high level, you take all the experiences, and that's what we're going to bring to us at DePaul. As far as the coaching staff, you know, I feel really good about all of our hires. I think being able to kind of set the tone early with a couple important hires in Jack Owens and Brian Mullins were important for us. And then being able to kind of build from there was, you know, people have talked about the head coaching experience. That wasn't really a criteria. It just, these are good coaches, good people, and they work. And that's what's going to be required here.
Yeah. Hey, Sam, just wait, Sam, look at this. You know what I'm excited about him, that he's at DePaul? Because here's the thing, you know where my love comes from.
The Michigan. Yeah.
Yeah, go blue, baby.
Did you grow up there, or?
I'm
married into a Michigan family.
I married a smarter person than me. My wife's whole family went to Ohio State. My wife went to the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor.
Oh my goodness! Her whole family went to Ohio State, but
yeah, there's 7 degrees in her immediate family between her dad. They're all in medicine. Her twin brother has 2 degrees from Ohio State. Her middle brother, her dad, her younger brother, and then my sister-in-law has 2 degrees. So what's that, 8? And she went to Michigan.
You see that with some families. It's unique. You do see that with, like, everybody's going to, you know, Ohio State, which is a really good school, and then
no, it's not.
Michigan's, you know, a fantastic school.
Superior.
Superior.
Well, Coach, we're going to have some issues here because you're too political. You want to talk about Marquette now? We want to bring Marquette in the equation here?
No, we're gonna keep moving before LT gets a little too fired up here. But you talked a little bit about the coaching hires. With the transition that's happening in college basketball with NIL and transfer portal, you know, a couple guys you brought in like Lavelle and Brandon back to DePaul and everything like that have some like NBA professional experience to kind of, was that part of that, knowing what's currently happening with NCAA basketball and those two aspects with the transfer portal and NIL?
I mean, I think both of them were just really good fits. Brandon was with me at Ohio State for just 1 year, and Brad Stevens, who's has been a good friend, he had been talking to me about Brandon really for a couple years.
Okay.
And when I would go out there, he had kind of mentioned, hey, Brandon might be a guy eventually you'd like to look at to help with some things. And Brandon has studied NBA defenses and offenses for years, for really 12, 13 years. He's a student of the game. He's also a DePaul grad, as you mentioned. And that was just he and Jack Owens both had the opportunity to potentially stay at where they were at, and they decided to come on board, which I think says a lot about what they believe this place can be. And I'm excited about having all of our staff. Laval obviously had experience in the Big East and was out of it for a couple years, then got into some scouting stuff with Milwaukee. But I think he's a coach at heart, so he wanted to get back into coaching and was looking for the right fit because he has family. His family's staying in Indianapolis, so I think he was looking for the right situation and the right fit. And I think being able to have a degree of financial resources to make a commitment to those guys, our whole staff was important.
Yeah. What was the conversations like with Paris I mean, he was on the staff before. How does that work? I mean, usually when you come into a coaching position, you just start fresh and you start new.
Right.
What was that conversation like?
Yeah, it's a good question. Real honest, hey, what can you tell me, Paris, from your perception? First question was him helping me navigate. Do we want to try to add or keep anybody from the previous roster? So having those conversations, tell me about the previous roster, help me understand some of these guys. And there were some guys that we talked through everybody, but there were certain guys we really talked through. And then it was, hey, I would like a guy that understands this area, not just the city, but the suburbs, the area, the area well. I knew Brian would, having coached at Loyola, having also been in this area, in this state, and Jack Owens had recruited Illinois. But I thought having someone like Paris, and you mentioned John Gross, he worked for John. John spoke really highly of him. One of my former assistants, who's a head coach, Ryan Peden, really. So we just we had a lot of honest conversations about, hey, kind of this is the expectations here. And if you want to be a part of this, I want to give you a really serious evaluation. And then I decided to keep him, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also interesting. Sam and I talked about it quite a bit. Meeting Dwayne and you getting hired and stuff like that. It's really interesting how you can have a blank slate, and with the NIL and transfer portal, we can knock it all we want, but in your situation, you really can play the hand well. And I mean, you brought in all these new players. You must be doing a lot of like team building exercises.
Yes.
But what I really like is there's kind of you got some great shoot. I mean, you obviously know the Big East. I'm really excited about some of these players. The one guy that I'm really excited about is David Thomas. JJ Trainer, I mean, had struggled a little bit at Louisville. CJ you got guys that put in the right situation, which I think DePaul's going to offer that. You could have a really good team really quickly.
Some of this, as you guys know, some of this is guys trying to play up a level. David Thomas, you mentioned, move up, and that's good. There's going to be a learning curve to that when you go consistently against the competition. The NCAA is a beautiful thing because you see these upsets happen. What most people who've coached in elite leagues will tell you is it's not a one-off. It's the grind of the competition night after night after night. And that's the same thing for a player. When you elevate your level, it's can you do it night after night after night against elite competition. So with all of our guys that have transferred up, that'll be a challenge. And I think one that they'll be ready for. What the benefit of taking transfers really is the second year. I'm certainly not punting on this year, but all the documents, all the studies, all the research, and there's been research on this, has shown the benefit is in the multi-year transfers because once they have they just are better their second and in some cases third years.
Right. But coach, not to cut you off, here's the problem with NIL and the transfer portal. How are you going to get them come back the second year? I mean, let's be honest. I mean, you look at what Coach Shire said at Duke. We've had multiple we've had a ton of coaches. They've said, they've been coaches trying to pick them in the transfer and the handshake line. I mean, how do you motivate them to come back?
Well, that's a great question. Certainly. I mean, obviously, we've talked about that. We've thought about that. Here's how. You bring in guys that want to be at DePaul. Now you can say, hey, coach, you just told me DePaul's won 3.5 games in league play the last 19 years. Okay. I get that. Some guys just like me are going to say, hey, I'm excited about this challenge. There are going to be guys that are going to come back and say, hey, I would like to be closer to home than what my previous spot is. I like a DePaul degree. I'd like to finish up my college career getting a DePaul degree. I would like to be an hour away from my family so they can watch me play versus 8 hours. And I would like to be able to play at another level. Or play at a higher level. And then you really are betting on the people around them and them to say, you know what, if this is a rewarding experience in year one, I want to stay where I'm at. Now, is that foolproof? Absolutely not. Are there going to be transfers? There are transfers every year in every program. There's going to be some guys that it's not going to work out with. That's the reality. But if you bring in enough that have multi-year and you're betting on them and betting on the environment we're going to create for them, then you hope you can keep a handful of them and build from there.
Yeah.
So you've started some practice sessions this summer. Like, what is it like having all new guys? I mean, is there anybody who's surprising you and like who you weren't expected to really step up so quickly? And like, who, when you do have a brand new squad like this, who's the leader of the team?
Well, I think the guys that you look at right now that you feel the most, you hear and you feel the most, are a guy like Connor Enright, who's been in college basketball for 3 years, 2 years on a tournament team. He redshirted his first year. Like he's been around so many practices. So he has a confidence in his voice. And in general, he's a pretty spirited kid in how he plays anyway. If you ever watched him, he doesn't mind talking a little junk. He doesn't mind getting under the skin of the opponent. Like that's who he is as a player. So he comes to mind. I think a lot of our older guys that have been a part of it, even a guy like JJ you mentioned, who has got to grow his game, but he's been a part of college basketball now multiple years. And he has 2 years left. A CJ Gunn who, we've got to get him doing things better than what he did at Indiana. That's what we've got to help him with, understanding how to perform better. But he's had a good voice in practice. And then we've had a couple older guys that have been injured that are expected to be an important part of our rotation that have just kind of stuff that they've had to recover from. But the young guys are the young guys, and I would put the sophomore group as still young guys. They're still trying to think through and figure it out. And the freshmen are that way and some. So those would be the guys that I would point to. Troy's another one, 3 years in college. Those are the people you hear the most right now. NJ Benson's been a good player for us here, player at Missouri State who's kind of growing big and has, I think, potential to be a solid Big East big man.
Yeah. So I have a two-part. I'm going to give you some advice, some recruiting advice, especially when you're recruiting against Marquette. And no offense to Coach Smart. I knew him when he was at Akron, and he still doesn't come on the podcast, but whatever. Shout out to the Marquette SID. So when you're recruiting against Marquette, I want you to look at the girl-to-guy ratio that is Marquette and DePaul. Ours is much better at DePaul, I might add. Okay, but the second point I want to ask you is with the NIL and the transport, 13 new players. Do you guys have like a long goal for recruiting? Is it going to be more emphasized on Chicagoland? Is it going to be, because I mean, Sam knows this, for years, the DePaul faithful was really kind of annoyed with the coaching staff. They weren't recruiting Chicago hard enough. But the way the landscape has gone, where are you going to go these next couple of years since you're already building for next year's class and beyond?
Yeah, great question. The best players we can find will always have an inward-outward focus. So we're always going to want to recruit our region first and foremost. Now, you guys probably know this. A lot of kids from the air city, same thing in a lot of places. It's not just Chicago, but they move out. They go they go to prep schools at other places. A lot of the best players. I think the city and the suburbs will always be, and the state will always be a place that we will look first and foremost, because it's the same thing we just talked about. Kids who want to be at DePaul or want to be in this region you're going to be more apt to be able to hang on to them as players. So it just makes sense. But what I would tell you is it's going to be the best players we can find wherever they're at. People have asked, are you going more high school than transfer portal? It'll be a blend of both. It'll be a blend of both. We're not going to completely ignore high school kids. And we're certainly going to be an active player given our city in both the transfer portal and in international recruiting.
Nice. How does schedule look, Coach? Because I've got some. I did some research on DePaul records. Unfortunately, we're 1-19 against UConn. You can't deny that one. 6-20 against Butler. But I've got some key ones that you do not want to schedule out of conference. Kansas 1-6. Pittsburgh 1-9. Do not schedule Charlotte 5-15. Kentucky, I know you and Dwayne are going to work on this one. 1-13. You need to schedule multiple games against Maine. We're 7-0. I got Detroit Mercy too. We're 15-2, and they won 0 games. No, they won 1 game last year, did they?
Those are powerful stats. Stats. I appreciate that. Some of those, listen, not most people aren't going to have a really good record against Kansas, right? I mean, that's kind of.
Hey, Coach, we were there in the
flesh.
At the game. We were both there. Sam rented a limo.
And what?
Sam rented a limo for that game. I was there.
Oh, is that right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Here's what I want to do scheduling-wise. I would like to be able to have an attractive non-conference schedule. Now, I had some influence on this schedule. I wasn't able to do a lot of the games, as you guys know. They're done years in advance. So I'd like to do a home and home where every year we have a marquee home opponent and maybe something on the road. So we're playing maybe an SEC school here at home. Maybe let's say in Arkansas here at home, and then we're going to their place or vice versa. And then build it with some, a couple marquee games. I also like to play in some of these exempt tournaments where it's, either in Charleston or last year we won the tournament. It was us. It was Ohio State, Oregon, Alabama, and Santa Clara down in Florida. So playing at some of those events that are tournament settings where there's an actual champion and you're playing against good teams is something I'll definitely schedule for sure. And then obviously, games that number of home games and then games that prepare us for the Big East, which is, again, going to be a top 3 league in the country.
Yeah.
So
Sam,
talk a little.
Sam, just wait, because you want to hear this. Sam, what is our record against Northwestern? We've played them 36 times.
I have no idea.
Coach, you know what it is?
What's that?
What's DePaul's record against Northwestern? We've played them 36 times. 21-15. So I want you to keep that going.
Nice.
Yeah.
Northwestern, by the way, I don't know if you've had Chris on here.
No. We've had his dad. We've had his dad.
You had his dad. His dad's awesome. Yeah. They have real struggles, obviously, for whatever his first 5 or 6 years. Then they went to the tournament. Then he really struggled. They are really good. He's a phenomenal coach, terrific staff. I know I just have a lot of respect for those guys. I really do. And I think he's done it as well as you can do it. He's really got it rolling right now. They're good. And I think they're good.
Cool.
Yeah. So you talked a little bit about like preparing for the Big East, and obviously we love the Big East. I mean, it's one of the grittiest kind of blue collar leagues in college basketball, and it seems like you put together a rock. Stats definitely speak, but it's like when you watch the minutes that some of your guys had last season, they're all guys that played hard. Right. And that's what I love about like this upcoming squad that's going to be on the court, because in the Big East, anything can happen if the team plays hard for 40 minutes. Talk a little bit about the Big East, because this is your second coming into the Big East, and like, what are your expectations for the league? I mean, you said top 3 league in the country, and then like, what does success look like for DePaul in the Big East?
Well, it's a great question. Listen, when I was in the Big East as a head coach for 3 years at Butler, we finished second, tied for second, and tied for 4th. And you would say, was the Big East as good as it is now? It was good. I think typically you had 5 or 6 teams in the. I think one year we had 5 teams, another year we had 6 teams. It wasn't quite as good because of UConn. We didn't have UConn at the time, but it was still an elite league at that time. We were able to do it. How do you finish top 4 all 3 years and second a couple? You're able to do it with older guys, mature guys, experienced guys. We got old and we're able to stay old, and it's harder now, as you guys mentioned, with the transfer portal. But I think that needs to be our recipe here in a lot of ways in terms of getting players in our program, keeping multi-year transfers, developing guys. We need to be a great player development program. We need to hang on to our good players and develop them. We need to get as old as we can. And I think that as that happens, you'll see our program continue to grow.
Yeah. So pretty much if you win 4 games, we're going to give you a contract extension.
Well, but I mean, like that is the new transition in college basketball is get old, right? And it's like It used to be like, hey, how many McDonald's All-Americans can you guys get on your squad and everything? Now it's like every coach we're talking to during this off season, if you can even call it that anymore, because it seems like you guys are more busy than ever right now. It's like, how do we keep a roster old, right?
Yes.
And
it's the key. And it's not because we don't. I mean, I just got done. I told you guys, I just got done starting 4 freshmen and 4 sophomores in back-to-back years. But it's just, and it's no offense to those. And I said it every, early in my tenure there, like get old, stay old. I went a little bit counter to that. And it's no offense to young players. We love young players, but you got to have the right balance and the blend of young and old. And you have to grow them and develop them. The best programs, most consistent programs do that. Coach Cal, he's admitted that, he's admitted that he's going to probably do it a little bit different at Arkansas than he did at Kentucky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sam, you think he's ready?
Let's do it, LT. So, Coach, what we do a little thing called the shot clock, and LT is going to fire off, 5-6 questions. Most of them are pretty fun. If they lead to a certain story or something, just freestyle it a little bit and let it rip. Let's get it, LT.
Okay.
All right, here we go. I got to be professional here. One word to describe DePaul.
Beautiful.
Okay. A couple syllables too. I like that. One word to describe the Big East.
Grind.
Okay. The song that best describes Dwayne Peavy.
Oh, Dwayne Peavy. Oh man. The song. Best. Dwayne likes to have fun. So whatever song right now, like talks about having fun. I don't know. Maybe what was it? Not Like Me. It's out. That's the hottest song right now.
That's the hot song right now. Yeah. Break.
I'll
I think
throw that out for Dwayne. That'll be
all right. Do. All right. What is your spirit animal?
Spirit animal. I'm pretty. I would say most people would say I'm pretty kind, but I can be in between the lines, a little nasty. So I don't know. I love boxers. I don't know if I'd have. I don't know what my spirit is. It's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah.
I love dogs. Whatever would identify with that characteristic, probably.
Yeah, I would think more like a bear. You're kind of soft. Well, no, bears aren't soft and cuddly. All right, so we killed that one. We got your boy Chris Mack on that one. That was kind of comical. Toughest recruiting victory in all your years of coaching. Who was the guy that was the toughest to get?
E.J. Liddell. E.J. Liddell came down to Illinois and Missouri. Obviously, back-to-back Mr. Basketball kid here. You recruit those kids. I don't know how much it happens anymore with these 2-year recruitments. Guys, like used to be you'd recruit a guy for 2 years. And, I think probably he was the toughest because he was so important for us. And we were trying to pull him from both his home state and he had a family member who I love to this day, but he was pushing Missouri. So we had to overcome that.
Yeah. We don't like those people that push other schools that aren't the schools we're at. Funniest recruiting story.
Funniest recruiting story. I was bit by a dog on a recruiting visit one time. Was bit by a dog. That was an experience.
Did you get the kid?
No, it did not. It did not work out with the kid. It did not work out.
Didn't work out with the dog either, Coach.
No, it didn't. It didn't. No, it didn't. But that was not the reason. I would say that, and then you never know when you're pushing kids to the brink of being over the top in your attention. And we got a big recruit at Ohio State, a kid named Malachi Branham. Mm-hmm. He's terrific. He's now with the Spurs. He was a one and done. And I love the kid. But he came out when he was interviewed the night he committed. He was interviewed and he just said, basically said, "Thank God my recruitment's over because Coach Holtman and Coach Peden were really annoying these last months." So we were clearly over the top in our attention to him. So,
okay, well, you know what? It worked.
It did work.
So you create this monster at DePaul in a good way. We get to the Final Four again. No pressure. Let's just win 4 games in conference on an average basis. But you do this great kind of like Hollywood story, and they decide, you know what, Coach, we want to do a Hollywood movie on you. So, Coach, who would you want to play you in your Hollywood life movie?
Kevin Costner.
That's a good one. I see it too. Yeah.
Kevin. I've been. People have said I sound like him at times. I've never quite had. I look like him, which is disappointing. I'd be down with Kevin Costner. Like he's in the handful of actors that I could whatever Denzel, probably Tom Cruise. If they're putting something out there, I'm watching it.
Yeah. Nice. Well, at least you didn't say you wanted Denzel Washington to be your Hollywood star, but you never know. So I'm going to ask you a couple quick, just DePaul questions, just to maybe educate you, see where you're at. Who is the career point leader at DePaul basketball?
Oh, you're going to put me on the spot right now. That's what.
Absolutely.
That's what this will be about. Would Aguirre be up there? I mean, he was a straight.
Good guess. You are correct, Coach. Do you want to tell me how many points he got in his career at DePaul?
Oh, I have no idea. I have no idea.
Now, he played 37.3 minutes, and there was no three-point line. 2,182 points.
And he played 3
years, I think. Yeah, 3 years.
I thought he played 3. I mean, think about that now. A guy like that would never play 3 years in today's game.
No. He would have been out of, he played 78, 79, 79, 80, and 80 and 81. And there were some good players and he was one of the best in the country each one of those years.
Yep. It's amazing when I know you're trying to get him on the podcast. When you stand next to him, you realize how special he was because he's not this, 6'9", 6'10", Kevin Durant. He was an incredible scorer at his size.
Yeah. I've met him a couple times, and then you start talking to him and you realize, okay, this guy was the shit. All right. Who had the most defensive rebounds? This was during our era, Sammy. Defensive rebounds in DePaul history with 502 defensive rebounds. I'll put you on the spot too, Sam. Who would you say? I'll put both
defensive rebounds.
Defensive rebounds. Yep.
Was it during my time there?
Yes.
Andre Brown.
Yep. 502. Okay.
There you go.
Andre Brown. Wow.
Yeah. He was the McDonald's All-American at Leo. Great guy. He dunked on me a couple of times when I played pickup with him. It wasn't fun.
I think Corzine has the overall total rebound.
That's who I was going to say, Corzine.
Yep. Dave Corzine, 1,151. What Demon played the most games in a Blue Demon uniform? This was when your time. You might have been coaching at Butler at then. 129 games. Come on, Sam. Don't be looking on your phone.
I'm not.
Coach, you are correct. All right. I'm going to give you 2 more. That's good, Coach. Eli Kane, 129 games. Wow. You were at Butler when he was at DePaul, correct?
They almost beat us here with him one year at here. They didn't, but they almost did.
Yeah. Okay. Who is the 3-point field goal leader in DePaul history?
Struz. No.
Nope.
Percentage or made?
Made.
Ooh.
Hurry up, Sam. He's got better things to do than make you think.
I have no idea.
Want me to tell you since you don't know?
So Tommy?
Drake Diener.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Great dinner. Last question, Coach. Let's see if either of you guys can get this. Who averaged 6.4 assists per game at DePaul?
Strickland.
Yeah, it's easy.
Yeah.
See, there you go. You got some education there.
Yeah, I did. You gave me a couple softballs, but a couple tough ones there too. I saw Rod recruiting. Went up to him a month and a half ago. Talked to him a little bit. It was great. It was great having a conversation. It's one of the really cool things about when you work at places. You get a chance to meet some of the special players that have come through.
Yep, absolutely. But Sam, we got one last question. The song that best describes you, Coach Holtman.
Don't Stop Believing, Journey.
Love it.
That's the first one we've ever had. Journey. That's nice, Coach.
Yeah, we've been all over the board with coaches this past season.
What did Mac say? I'd be curious what Mac said with something like that. He had some nonsense answer, I'm sure.
What did he say? Wasn't it country?
It was a country. Yeah.
It was.
We'll have to pull the clip with Coach Mac.
Yeah, I can't remember that one.
And see what it was. But we've had everything from country to it's Grateful Dead to hip hop. You name it.
All hardcore.
Mac loves some country. That does not surprise me.
Yeah. And what's funny, Sam, just quickly before we let him go, or before your last question, then we'll let him go, is how many, like, you guys are like, it's a fraternity. I mean, you talk about, we've had you worked, you played with, you're a better basketball player, and then had to work for Coach Gross. I don't know how that really went, but you got nicer hair than him too. You probably drink less coffee also. And then Coach Kelsey worked with Coach Mac.
Yep.
Who it's funny how incestual coaching is, and it truly is a fraternity for a lot, especially in the Midwest. I find
that's all I was gonna say, especially that Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana region. The number of head coaches that have come out of there is just incredible.
For sure. And listen, there are guys that you connect with and just generally like better than others. That's normal, but you see these guys all the time in the summer. You're forced in some cases to sit next to them because it's a packed recruiting gym. But yeah, you do really build friendships. And, I think when you go through, Mac went through some really hard things at Louisville. Like, he's a really good coach and a really good guy. And so you build a friendship with guys that, just have been in it, for a number of years. So, yeah.
And I think people don't really understand when, like, Coach Mac was obviously a really good coach, as are you and many other coaches. People just say, like, he failed at Louisville, or you technically failed your last 2 years at Ohio State, or Coach Gross. I mean, look at the situation he was in at Illinois. I mean, people just, all they look is the wins loss. They don't understand, how young kids are, injuries, having 3 athletic directors in 5 years.
For sure.
There's a lot more to it than just the wins and losses.
And listen, there's no debating right now, and John's proven it again. Like, look what he did at Ohio. Look what he's done at Akron right now. He is a hell of a basketball coach. There is no debating that.
Yeah, so I think we're going to have the first full court press podcast, classic, Akron versus DePaul.
Let's make it happen. Let's do it. So, Coach, I got 2 questions, then we're going to let you go. The first one is, looking at your body of work. We've already kind of talked a little bit about Butler, Ohio State, Gardner-Webb, even your time at Ohio. Like, if you could put together your starting 5 of any kids that you've coached during your coaching career, what's that starting 5 roster look like?
Oh, boy, that's a tough one. Boy, that is a tough one. I would probably say, let me think about my point. Kamar,
it could
Ball,
be positionless. It can be positionless, Coach.
I'd go probably Dwayne Washington, who I coached at Ohio State, who's with the Knicks now. And then I'm going to go. EJ would be in there. Malachi would be in there. Kamar Baldwin would be in there, who I coached at Butler. Who's a phenomenal. I only got to coach him 1 year, but a phenomenal player. I loved coaching Keelan Martin, but I'm trying to think of Jay Sean Tate or Kata Bates-Diop would probably be the 5th guy in that group. That is a tough ask, because there's some phenomenal I'm going to name a bunch of guys, but Kyle Young, Caleb Weston, those guys were great. Tyler Whiteman was really good for us. Andrew Travis. So,
you got a squad, and I think it's, people look at where you coach, but I don't think everybody knows like some of the elite players that you helped get to the next level. And
it's been fun. Like I will tell you that it's one of the blessings of coaching is when you see Malachi Branham be drafted 20th, Bryce Sensabaugh, who wasn't expected to be a one and done. And does it hurt? People say, well, does it hurt your program? Well, of course it does, but it helps a kid and his family. Of course it hurt Ohio State that we had back-to-back one and done. So that's obvious, but it really helps. It's life-changing for a kid and his family. And did they develop maybe a little bit faster? Maybe, but they deserved it. They worked really hard, and couldn't be more happy for Bryce and Malachi and Dwayne and EJ and Jayshawn Tate and Kata and, all those guys that we got to coach who are now living their dream in the NBA.
Yeah.
No, that's amazing. All right. So we're going to turn it over to you for a minute, Coach. Just anything. I'm actually going to put my Dream Big hat on because I am so excited for this next season. Been drinking my Dream Big mug, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Coach. Like anything you want to share to that DePaul alumni, boosters, student section, anything that you want them to know about this upcoming season and some of the guys.
Yeah. Here's what I would tell you. What I want everybody who cares about DePaul basketball, DePaul University, that is hungry for this place to be relevant in basketball. What I want them to know is we are working tirelessly as a coaching staff and as a group here. We've been on campus 3 weeks to make that happen, and to make that happen the right way as quickly as we can. I've done this before, and you don't know when the breakthrough is going to happen. But if you just stay committed to the daily work, eventually a breakthrough happens. And for us, it's been, I hate to say it, but it really has been fun just to dig our heels in. But we are working tirelessly. And what we really need is we need people who say, hey, listen, I'm going to get behind this. And if there are a few bumps in the road, we understand that's how things work. We understand that's how college basketball works. But I'm going to believe in what this group is doing, and I'm going to come out and support at Wintrust this group as much as I can, because that's the one area that I think, guys, I think we have to figure out how to address is how do we create more of an environment. Winning will take care of it. We all know that. All right. How do we address that as we're in the process of building a winner? Because it's going to be so important. But I've got, again, a big reason why I took the job was because I want to see smiles on guys' faces that are wearing the Dream Big hat and drinking out of the Dream Big mug, and talk about all the glory days of DePaul basketball. And that's what we're fighting every day to make happen. We really are, because we know how much people want to get back to that point.
Yeah. Well, Coach, thank you so much. You're going to stick with us one more second, but Coach, thanks for joining us. We're excited, as they say, DEMONS. Do. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the Full Court Press Podcast, a college basketball experience.